So as far as the Hawks are concerned, the playoffs don't really matter, but we're gonna go over it anyway. We see Golden State with the 1 seed, followed by Houston, the Clippers, OKC, San Antonio, New Orleans, Minnesota, and the Jazz in the West, and Cleveland, Toronto, the Wizards, the Hornets, Philly, Boston, Detroit, and the Bucks in the East. Houston surprisingly beats the Warriors in convincing fashion, and then steamrolls the Cavs in 5 games for the championship. Chris Paul, not Harden, wins MVP of the finals, and we finally enter the offseason. So at the end of the season, we see Dennis Schroeder finishing with an average of 20 points and 6 assists per game. He was our leader on the floor and really established himself as one of the top 10 point guards in the league. He attempted 16 shots a game, so I'm pretty content with this 46% from the field, and he shot a decent 37% from 3. Best of all, he only averaged 2 turnovers per game, which is pretty amazing for the amount of time he was on the floor and controlled the ball. In the future, I'd like to see his assists go up, but given the team this year and the situation we had, 6 is a totally understandable number. Ilyasova finished as our number 2 in scoring and did exactly what was expected of him this year. He grabbed 6.5 boards a game, but we already knew he'd be more offensive minded, and where he played on the floor isn't ideal for rebounds, which is partly why I coveted Dedmon early in the season and eventually swapped for Boban. He's 31 years old, but a great locker room presence, and I'm looking forward to bringing him back at least for next season. Boban surprisingly came in 3rd on offense with over 12 points a game. He also averaged 9.5 rebounds and 1.3 blocks per contest. He's only been in the league for 3 years, but is already 29. At his size though, just having him in the paint is going to alter opposing game plans, so I'm hoping he recovers completely from that back injury and come back strong next season. Bellinelli came in at just under 12 points a game and not much else, but that's all we asked of him. This offseason, we'll look for a more defensive-minded 2-guard. We also have Bembry, who bounced back after a rocky start to the season and seems to be progressing at a reasonable rate. Taurean Prince was our best defensive player and also produced on the other end of the floor as well. He was our most well-rounded guy with 11.5 points, 5 boards, 1.5 steals, and 1 block a game. At just 24 years old, he's just starting to realize his potential, and I think he could be a critical piece on a championship squad. John Collins is also an up-and-coming prospect on our team and seemed destined for a starting spot before he went down with a bad injury early. We eased him back into the rotation in the last month of the season, and he made the most of the limited time with just under 8 points and 5 boards a game. The guy's just so explosive and has so much potential that we decided to take the Embiid approach this season and keep him out until he's 110% healed, and then some. Hopefully we'll see him back in full force next year and potentially in that starting power forward position. So as we move ahead into the offseason, we see that Vince Carter followed through with his plan and finally retired. We had talked to him about bringing him onto the coaching staff, and we'll be looking into that along with Paul Pierce, who had expressed some interest in coaching as well. Jason Terry, Meta World Peace aka Ron Artest, Ginobili, Udonis Haslem, Birdman, Nick Collison, Leandro Barbosa, James Jones, Dante Jones, Randy Foy, and Luis Scola are all notable names calling it quits this year. After the retirement announcements, we go to a press conference where we're asked about the rumors surrounding the Board of Governors voting on a bid for the Atlanta Hawks. I confirm that I'm spoken with the buyer, but I keep my lips sealed on the actual identity until everything is all set. Soon after, Louis Meyer pulls up in his limo and invites me in to tell me that he's officially bought back the Hawks. I extend my congrats, but he isn't done yet. He goes on to ask me to take the position of President of Basketball Operations, which I gladly accept. After hearing the news, Bob Sanderson calls me into his office and gets all sentimental, thanking me for the work this year and apologizing for any hard feelings. It's all bullshit, and I just sit and smile knowing that the guy we've all wanted is back in power now, and I'm set in my new position as well. We go next to the official announcement press conference, where Louis Meyer introduces me as the President of Basketball Operations. We then get asked about the rumors concerning a move to Seattle, which I confirm, but explain that it will not be followed through and died with the removal of Bob Sanderson. Next, we go through the league meetings to see that the board approved a rule change so that opposing teams will enter the bonus after 16 fouls in an overtime period. Otherwise, things stay the same. And then, finally, the moment we've all been waiting for. Andrew Sanderson comes in and asks to speak with me concerning his job and to clear the air. When I indulge him, he immediately starts blaming his father for forcing him to go behind my back and do everything that he did. He explains that with Bob gone, he's completely dedicated to being the best assistant consistent he can be, and to follow the hierarchy. He basically sounds like an old ex-girl crawling back after her new man dumped her. I let him finish and then proceed to roast the out of him. I list everything he's done, from the Twitter fiasco to the unauthorized trade to literally telling me he's planning on taking my job one day. With all that, it's simply too much to ignore, and I tell him he's not a part of the Hawks organization anymore. He starts begging me, but I tell him to have a nice day. So with that out of the way, we can move on to the draft lottery. Looking at the standings, we're currently at 5th with an 8.8 chance of moving into 1st. The Heat, Mavs, Sun, and Nuggets all sit ahead of us. Almost every year, the incoming draft class seems to be hyped as the best since the 2003 NBA draft. But this year, we have 3 guys, Baldwin, Petrovic, and Stapleton, who have been putting up numbers that have never been seen in college and overseas before. With these guys in the running, it's really important that we get in the top 3. As we sweat it out, a miracle happens and the 5th pick goes to the Nuggets. Suns get the ping pong ball next, and we end up with the 3rd, which is more than we could have asked for. Now we can hold on to our other first round picks that we've accrued instead of trying to package them in a deal to move up. With that in the bag, we move on to re-signing our staff. We essentially clean house and hire all new people except Mike Budenholzer. We bring in the Michael McDonald lookalike Jacob West, who is known around the league as an efficient financial analyst. Eric Brown, a man well respected by the majority of GMs, replaces Andrew's position. We also end up signing Paul Pierce as our new assistant coach. After countless meetings with both Vince Carter and Pierce, all 3 of us came to a mutual agreement that Paul was a better fit as the assistant on the bench, while Carter will take a more behind-the-scenes position with the Hawks organization. Next, we signed Cuba Gooding, no relation to the one and only Cuba Gooding Jr., for 4 years as the head scout. Brought in from the EuroLeague, he was the head scout of CSKA Moscow, Europe's historically best team, who holds a record of 304 wins and 88 losses over the last 17 years. Gooding has had a hand in virtually all of their signings, and we're excited to bring that insight onto our team. And finally, we get Scott Patterson in as our head trainer. He got to start with the Suns training staff, which is world-renowned for their expertise, and quickly climbed the ranks and became a favorite amongst the players in the locker room. Still only 30 years old, we're snagging him while we can, with the hope that he can bring some of the Suns' secrets to Atlanta. And with that out of the way, the most anticipated event we've basically built our entire season around is finally here, the NBA Draft.